Have you ever felt like you're trapped in an invisible cage? Every morning when you wake up, your heart races, your breath becomes heavy, and your mind is constantly filled with negative thoughts, even though you know there's no real danger. I understand that feeling because I had many patients describe it exactly the same way. Anxiety is a real condition. It's not because you're weak or overly sensitive. Today, we will explore this condition together, understand it more deeply, and most importantly, find out how to overcome it. And if you're still wondering, you cannot recover from this, let me assure you absolutely can. We've helped many people overcome it, and so will you. Stay tuned until the end of the video to find the answers. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been hearing a lot from you about wanting to level up personally, finding ways to feel a bit calmer, maybe manage those big emotions that pop up.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about today's deep dive. We're really going deep into mindfulness and acceptance.
Okay, I like where this is going. These are definitely tools I think we could all use a refresher on, maybe an upgrade too.
Absolutely. And what we're going to explore is how these can seriously help you handle those tough emotions, dial down the anxiety, and hopefully even sprinkle in some extra peace in your everyday life.
I'm so here for that extra piece. Sign me up. So we're diving into mindfulness and acceptance. Can you give us the quick rundown of what those actually mean?
Well, mindfulness basically means paying attention to the present moment. But we're not just talking about mindfulness by itself here.
Oh, there's more. Give me the good stuff.
We're looking at it through the lens of something called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to get super practical and effective.
CBT. Okay, full disclosure, whenever I hear CBT, my brain jumps straight to, like, a therapist's couch and digging into all that childhood baggage.
I get that. It's a common misconception. But what's really cool about this approach is that it's not about dwelling on the past.
Okay, so less about why am I like this, and more about giving us the tools to actually work with our thoughts and feelings right now.
Exactly. It's about understanding how your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors all connect and learning how to manage them better so you can actually feel better.
So instead of being controlled by our emotions, we learn to kind of ride the waves.
Yes, exactly. And the research on this stuff is wild. Studies show that this combo, mindfulness and CBT, can be just as effective as medication for things like depression and anxiety.
Wow, seriously, just as effective as medication.
Yeah, and oftentimes the benefits last even longer. Plus, you're not dealing with any of those potential side effects that can come with medication.
Okay, that's a huge plus for sure. But let's be real for a sec. When stress hits, we all have our go-to coping mechanisms. Mine might be that extra glass of wine, or venting to a friend, or maybe just straight up avoiding the situation altogether. I'm sure a lot of people can relate.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there. And while those things might offer a little escape in the moment, they don't really get to the root of the problem.
So it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. It might look okay for a second, but it's not going to actually heal anything.
But got it. In fact, those kinds of coping mechanisms can create this nasty cycle. Think of it like hitting the snooze button on your alarm clock over and over again. You might get a few more minutes of sleep, but you're eventually going to have to wake up and face the day.
Okay, that is a perfect analogy. So where does mindfulness come in? Is it really as simple as, sitting cross-legged and chanting Om? Because I've tried that, and I'm not sure it's for me.
It's definitely more than just chanting. Mindfulness is about cultivating awareness of the present moment. Imagine you're walking through a forest. You're noticing the sunlight filtering through the leaves, the crunch of leaves beneath your feet, the scent of pine in the air.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that. It sounds peaceful. But how does that translate to, like, handling a crazy work deadline or a fight with my partner? That's when my stress levels go through the roof.
It's all about shifting your perspective. Instead of getting lost in the story you're telling yourself about the situation, like, this is a disaster, or I can't handle this, mindfulness lets you take a step back.
So instead of letting those thoughts run wild, we can actually choose to observe them without getting swept away. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. It's like you're becoming an observer of your own mind. You can acknowledge those thoughts and feelings without letting them control you.
I think I get it. So we're not trying to, suppress our emotions, right? Because that doesn't seem healthy either.
No, suppression is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Suppression is like trying to shove those emotions under the rug and pretend they don't exist. Acceptance, on the other hand, is about acknowledging them and letting them be there without pushing back.
Okay, I see the difference. But honestly, with all the distractions we face every day, the emails, the social media, the constant noise, How can we even begin to create that kind of present moment awareness you're talking about?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? That's actually where the combating distraction addiction part of our deep dive comes in.
Oh, distraction addiction. Tell me more, because I think I might have that.
Well, one of the biggest roadblocks to mindfulness is this tendency we have to always be stimulated. We reach for our phones the second we feel even a little bit bored or uncomfortable.
It's so true. It's like we can't stand to just sit with ourselves for a minute.
Yeah, and instead of facing those feelings head on and letting them run their course, we try to escape through distractions.
And then we end up feeling even more scattered and out of touch with ourselves.
Exactly. This is like we're running from our own shadow. The key is to understand that these uncomfortable feelings, they're a normal part of being human.
So we need to stop trying to run away from them and actually learn to be with them.
Yes. And to do that, we can learn to approach them with curiosity and compassion instead of fear and judgment.
So instead of refreshing my inbox for the 100th time, I should maybe pause, take a breath, and see what's actually going on inside me.
Exactly. And one really cool technique from the source material is to create what they call mindfulness anchors throughout your day.
Mindfulness anchors.
Think of them like little reminders to bring your attention back to the present moment. It could be something as simple as feeling your feet on the ground or the sensation of washing your hands.
I like that. It's a little mental reset button.
Yes. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to stay grounded in the present moment, even when life gets hectic.
This is giving me hope already. So mindfulness anchors, checking in with our feelings. What other tools do we have in our mindfulness toolkit?
Well, the source material also mentions a pretty interesting exercise using a piece of food. It caught my eye too. It sounds pretty simple, but effective.
Food and mindfulness. Okay, you got my attention. I'm a foodie, so tell me more.
It's all about becoming a more mindful eater. Let's say you have a small piece of chocolate. Instead of just popping it in your mouth, take a moment to really look at it. Notice the shape, the color, how the light reflects off of it.
So I'm really taking it all in. And then what? Do we analyze the cocoa content or something? I can geek out on that stuff.
Not quite. This is about engaging your senses. Gently touch the chocolate, feel the texture, how heavy it is, smell it, take in the aroma, and then, when you're ready, slowly bring it to your mouth.
Okay, I'm starting to see where the mindfulness comes in. It's like slowing down and appreciating the whole experience.
Yes. Notice how it feels on your tongue before you even take a bite. It's amazing how we rarely take the time to truly savor our food like that.
I know, right? We're always rushing, multitasking, barely even tasting what we're eating.
Exactly. This exercise is a powerful way to break free from those mindless eating habits. It helps you savor each bite, appreciate your food, and become more aware of your body's signals.
So I'll be more in tune with when I'm actually hungry or full rather than just mindlessly snacking.
Exactly. It's a small but mighty example of mindfulness in action.
Okay, I'm into it. But isn't this just a fancy way of saying eat slowly?
There's definitely more to it than just the pace. It's about being fully present with the experience of eating, using all of your senses, and cultivating gratitude for the nourishment you're receiving.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've got mindful eating, we've got mindfulness anchors, but what about meditation? Isn't that like the cornerstone of mindfulness? Do I need to become a meditation master to make all this work?
Meditation is definitely an amazing tool, kind of like hitting the gym for your mind. It helps you build focus, emotional control, and self-awareness.
Okay, so it's good for you, but
But it's not the only way to get those benefits. Remember those mindfulness anchors we were talking about? They're a great example of weaving mindfulness into your everyday life without needing to sit down and meditate for hours.
that's a relief. This is starting to feel way more doable.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you and incorporating it into your routine in a way that feels sustainable and even enjoyable.
Love that. So now that we've got the basics, where do we go from here? What are some key things we can start putting into practice right away?
Well, the source material outlines 4 key characteristics of mindful acceptance: being present, being non-judgmental, practicing non-striving, and cultivating a beginner's mind. We can unpack each of those.
Sounds good. Let's start with being present. What does that actually look like in everyday life? Am I supposed to constantly analyze every single thought that pops into my head?
That sounds exhausting, doesn't it? Being present isn't about overthinking. It's more about gently redirecting your attention back to the present moment whenever you notice your mind wandering off.
So it's like my mind is a puppy that keeps running off and I'm patiently bringing it back to me.
Exactly. You're just gently guiding it back
Yeah.
over and over again. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to stay present, even when life gets crazy.
Okay, that's reassuring. Now, what about this non-judgmental approach? Isn't it like human nature to judge our thoughts and feelings? How can we just turn that off?
You're right, it's totally natural to judge. But with this approach, it's not about eliminating judgment altogether. It's more about noticing those judgments as they come up without getting caught up in them.
So instead of beating myself up for having a certain thought or feeling, I just acknowledge that it's there.
Yes. Think of it like watching clouds drift by in the sky. You simply observe their shapes and movement without labeling them as good or bad or right or wrong.
Okay, that makes sense. So we're going for more of an observer role rather than getting tangled up in the storylines we create in our heads.
Exactly. And this non-judgmental stance creates a lot of space for self-compassion and understanding. It allows you to be kinder to yourself, even when you mess up or face challenges.
That sounds pretty freeing, actually. All right, let's move on to non-striving. Does that mean we should just give up on all our goals and float through life without any direction?
Not at all. Non-striving isn't about becoming passive. It's about releasing the need to control every outcome.
Hmm. Okay, so I can still have goals, but
But you're shifting your focus from the end result to the journey itself. Think of it like hiking through a beautiful landscape. You're appreciating each step you take, each view you encounter, without obsessing over reaching the summit.
so I can still want to reach the top of the mountain, but I'm enjoying the climb along the way.
Yes. And this attitude can actually make you more effective at reaching your goals because you're not weighed down by anxiety and pressure.
Less pressure, more enjoying the process. I like it.
Okay, last one. Cultivating a beginner's mind. What does that even mean? Do I need to start pretending I know nothing about anything?
Not exactly. It's more about approaching each experience with fresh eyes, with a sense of curiosity and openness.
So like seeing things for the first time even if I've experienced them before.
Exactly. It's about letting go of preconceived ideas and allowing yourself to be surprised by what you discover.
It's like rediscovering the world through a child's eyes. That sense of wonder and awe. Exactly. And this attitude of openness can lead to some amazing insights and breakthroughs. It lets you see things from new angles, learn from your experiences, and constantly grow.
This is all making so much sense, but I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous. What if I start paying attention to my inner world and it's like a total mess? What if all these negative thoughts and emotions come flooding in? It feels a bit scary.
That's a totally valid concern.
Hmm.
And it's important to address it. Mindfulness isn't about intentionally seeking out negativity, but sometimes it can feel that way at first.
Okay, so it's not like I'm going to suddenly become a magnet for negative thoughts.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. If you've spent years pushing down uncomfortable feelings, trying to ignore them, when you start practicing mindfulness, you're basically shining a light on those hidden parts of yourself.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. But how do we handle those intense emotions when they do show up?
Remember our weightlifting analogy from earlier? Well, mindfulness can sometimes feel like you're suddenly lifting a heavier weight than you're used to. But that's just because you're building strength. You're expanding your capacity to fully experience your emotions without being completely overwhelmed by them.
So we're training our emotional muscles, basically.
Yes. And the more you practice, the better you become at navigating those tough emotions without getting swept away.
It's like we're learning to surf those waves instead of getting knocked over by them. This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm starting to get a grasp on this whole mindfulness thing.
And we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
Well, I'm definitely ready to dive in deeper. We'll continue this conversation in our next episode.
Before we jump back in, I think it's really important to remember that becoming more mindful and accepting, it's not like a one-time fix.
Hmm.
It's more like a journey.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like any skill you want to get good at. You wouldn't expect to pick up a guitar and shred like a rock star overnight.
Exactly. Some days you'll feel amazing, like you're totally present and connected to yourself. But then other days, your mind's going to be all over the place, and that's okay.
So true. So what about those days when our minds feel like they're running a marathon we didn't sign up for? How do we gently, bring ourselves back to center?
That's where the power of the breath comes in. Remember that breathing exercise we did earlier? It's not just a one-time thing. It's something you can use anytime, anywhere, to reconnect with the present moment.
You mean like when I'm stuck in traffic and about to lose it because someone just cut me off?
Exactly. Instead of getting caught up in that anger and frustration, try taking a few conscious breaths. Notice how your chest rises and falls. Feel the air moving in and out of your nostrils.
Wait, are you saying something as simple as paying attention to my breath can actually help me manage those big, overwhelming emotions?
It might sound too simple, but it really works. The research shows that when we focus on our breath, we're shifting our attention away from those racing thoughts and bringing ourselves back to our body, to the physical sensations of the present moment.
Okay, I'm definitely willing to try that. But what if my mind keeps wandering even when I'm trying to focus on my breath? It feels like sometimes my thoughts have a life of their own.
Oh, that's completely normal. The mind loves to wander. It's kind of like a curious little puppy, always exploring, getting into everything. Your job is to be like a gentle but firm guide, bringing your attention back to your breath each time it wanders off.
So it's all about noticing those wandering thoughts without judgment and gently guiding our attention back to the anchor of our breath.
You got it. And with practice, you'll find that your mind naturally becomes calmer and more focused, and you'll be less reactive to those everyday stressors.
I love that. But this whole idea of mindfulness and acceptance, it still feels a bit counterintuitive to me. We're constantly told to strive for more, to achieve our goals, to push ourselves outside our comfort zones. But here you are telling us to let go of that striving and just accept things as they are.
It's not about becoming passive or giving up on your dreams. It's more about shifting your focus from the outcome to the process itself.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a musician, totally absorbed in playing your instrument. You're not focused on getting a standing ovation or winning an award. You're just enjoying the experience of creating music in that moment.
So it's more about finding fulfillment in the journey, not just obsessing over the destination.
Exactly. And this attitude can actually make you more effective at reaching your goals because you're less burdened by that anxiety and pressure.
That makes sense. Less pressure, more flow. I like the sound of that.
Okay.
This is all great in theory, but how do we actually integrate these mindfulness practices into our busy lives? I don't exactly have hours to spend meditating in a silent retreat.
The beauty of mindfulness is that you don't need a silent retreat to practice it. You can do it anytime, anywhere, even in the middle of your crazy day.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me some examples. How can I make this work in real life?
So let's say you're washing the dishes. Instead of letting your mind race through your to-do list, try bringing your full attention to the task at hand. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands, the slipperiness of the soap, the gentle clinking of the dishes.
Okay, I can see how that could make washing dishes a little less of a chore. What else?
You can practice mindfulness while you're walking. Notice the sensation of your feet hitting the ground, the rhythm of your breath, the sights and sounds around you. Or you can practice mindfulness while you're eating. Savor each bite, pay attention to the textures and flavors, really experience the food you're eating.
So even these everyday mundane activities can become opportunities for mindfulness.
Absolutely. It's all about transforming those ordinary moments into mini retreats, bringing a sense of presence and awareness to whatever you're doing.
This is a total game changer. But I have to be honest, part of me still worries that if I start paying attention to all these internal sensations and emotions, I'm just going to become more aware of all the things that are wrong with me, all my flaws and imperfections.
That's a really common fear. But here's the thing. Mindfulness isn't about judging yourself or striving for some kind of perfect ideal. It's about embracing yourself exactly as you are, flaws and all, with kindness and compassion.
So it's more about self-acceptance than self-improvement.
It's actually both. By accepting yourself as you are, you create the space for growth and transformation to happen naturally. It's like tending a garden. You don't force the plants to grow, you create the conditions for them to flourish.
That's a perfect analogy. Okay, but how do we know if we're actually making progress on this mindfulness journey? What are some signs to look out for?
As you practice mindfulness, you'll start to notice some subtle but really important changes in how you experience things. You might find yourself getting more patient and less reactive in tough situations. You might experience more clarity and focus, and even feel a deeper connection to your own emotions and the emotions of the people around you.
So it's not just about feeling calmer, it's about becoming more in tune with ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. And this increased awareness can lead to a much richer, more meaningful life.
I love that. But what about those times when mindfulness feels more like a struggle than a source of peace? What if I just can't seem to quiet my mind or shake off those negative thoughts?
Remember, mindfulness is a practice, not a destination. There will be days when it feels easy and natural, and days when it feels like an uphill battle. The key is to be patient with yourself, just like you'd be patient with a good friend who's having a hard time.
So it's all about embracing the ups and downs of the journey, just like we embrace the ups and downs of life.
Beautifully said. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are tons of resources out there to support you. Things like guided meditations, mindfulness apps, online communities, you name it.
That's great to know, especially for people who are new to this. And speaking of resources, the source material for this deep dive mentioned an online course that goes even deeper into these concepts.
Yes, that course is packed with practical techniques and guided meditations to help you really bring mindfulness and acceptance into your everyday life. It's a great option for anyone who wants to take their practice to the next level.
This is so inspiring. It feels like we're discovering a whole new way of being in the world, a way to experience life with more presence, awareness, and joy.
That's the power of mindfulness and acceptance. It's not about escaping reality, it's about embracing it fully, with all its ups and downs.
This has been incredible. But before we wrap up, I'm really curious to explore one more aspect of mindfulness that really stood out to me. In the source material, they talk about this idea of expanding awareness. It's like going beyond just noticing the surface level thoughts and feelings. Can you tell us more about that?
It's a great point, and it's really about going deeper, like peeling back the layers of an onion. At first you might only notice the most obvious emotion, like if you're stuck in traffic, you feel frustrated. But with practice, you start to tune into those subtler sensations and emotions underneath. Maybe there's tightness in your chest, your heart's racing. Maybe you even catch a glimpse of sadness, like a memory from the past is bubbling up.
So we're not just slapping a label on it like, oh, I'm frustrated. We're actually getting curious about all the different pieces of the emotional puzzle. What's the benefit of doing that?
Because those subtle clues, they often hold the key to understanding what's really going on. Let's say you're feeling anxious about a presentation. By expanding your awareness, you might uncover a fear of judgment that goes all the way back to childhood. Suddenly, that anxiety makes more sense, and you can approach it with a lot more self-compassion.
It's like we're becoming detectives of our own inner world, figuring out why we react the way we do. That's pretty cool, but I imagine that process can get pretty intense, especially if we've been avoiding certain emotions for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Remember our weightlifting analogy. Mindfulness can sometimes feel like you're suddenly lifting a much heavier weight, but that's just because you're building those emotional muscles. You're
Mhm.
expanding your capacity to feel everything, the good and the bad, without getting totally swept away.
So it's not about chasing some kind of blissful state where we never feel anything unpleasant. It's about learning to be with whatever comes up, with more acceptance and understanding.
Yes. And here's the amazing thing. As we get more comfortable with our own emotions, we naturally become more sensitive to the emotions of others. We develop greater empathy and compassion, which makes our relationships stronger and more fulfilling.
I love that. That's a beautiful ripple effect. But let's be honest, there are days when even the thought of being mindful feels like too much. Like, I just want to veg out with Netflix, not sit here analyzing every thought and feeling.
And you know what? That's totally okay. Mindfulness isn't about becoming some emotionless robot. It's about finding balance. Sometimes a Netflix binge is exactly what you need to unwind and recharge.
So how do we know when it's time to lean into mindfulness, when it's time to just let go and relax?
It's all about listening to your body and your intuition. If you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, mindfulness practices like focusing on your breath or practicing gratitude can be super helpful. But if you're truly exhausted and need a break, then a little escapism is perfectly fine.
So it's about finding what works for us in each moment. There's no right or wrong way to do this.
Exactly. And the more you practice mindfulness, the better you get at understanding your own needs and rhythms. You develop this deeper self-awareness that guides your choices and actions.
This has been so eye-opening, but I know our listeners are probably wondering, okay, where do I start? What's one simple thing they can do today to start bringing more mindfulness into their lives?
Here's a challenge for you. Pick one everyday activity, something you normally do on autopilot, and try doing it with your full attention. It could be brushing your teeth, taking a shower, even just walking from your car to your office. Engage all your senses. Notice the colors, the textures, the sounds, the smells. Be fully present in that moment.
I love that. It's such a simple but powerful way to start. It feels totally doable, even for someone who's never meditated before.
And that's the key. Start small, be patient with yourself, and remember, mindfulness is a journey, not a race. Every moment you spend being present is a win. It's a step toward greater awareness and peace.
This deep dive has been amazing. It feels like we've uncovered a whole new way of experiencing the world, a way to live with more intention, more connection, and more joy.
That's the beauty of mindfulness and acceptance. It empowers us to live more fully, more authentically, and more meaningfully.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights. Our listeners are going to walk away from this feeling so inspired.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration. Remember, the path to personal growth is always unfolding. Be kind to yourself, stay curious, and keep practicing those mindfulness techniques. We'll see you next time.